I want to talk about a recent conversation which I had with a very senior tech leader who is leading a large tech organization. And this was a pretty provocative conversation, and I made it provocative deliberately to show them a point. And when they came to me, their main topic that they wanted to address or overcome was how do I make other people more responsible. And the main problem that we started this conversation was that other people were not living up to their promises. Right? And I asked this person that if you give a promise to someone, who is responsible for that promise? And he said that I am responsible. If I give a promise to someone, then I am responsible for fulfilling that. And then I asked him that if somebody else gave you a promise, who is responsible for that? And he said that then they are responsible for that. Right? If they gave me a promise, they are responsible to fulfilling it. And that was the moment where I deliberately chose to ask a provocative question. And what I shared next with this person was that what if that itself is the cause of the problem that you're describing to me? And what if, as a possibility, as a perspective, not as the truth or the right or wrong way, no matter who gives a promise, you are responsible. And this was very provocative to the person, and he said, "What do you mean?" And I asked him that if somebody else gave you a promise and they are not fulfilling that, whose life or whose results are being impacted? And he said that my results are being impacted because we have to work together. And this other person that he was talking about was one of his peers, right? So he was leading the tech department, and the person that he was talking about was his peer from the product department. And both of them were leading large organizations, and they have to work together. So I asked him that if this product guy is not meeting his responsibility, are your results getting impacted? And he said, yes, my results are getting impacted. And then I simply suggested to him that if your results are getting impacted, then it is your responsibility. It doesn't matter who gave the promise. And this person went into it's this is not fair, that others should also take responsibility. And I agreed with him, right? Yeah, it is not fair. Yeah, maybe it is not fair, but this is the conversation that I was having with him, and many of my coaching conversations is not about what is fair or not. It's not about what is good or bad. It is not about what is right or wrong. It is about how do you need to show up as a leader so that you achieve the results that you want, right? And I asked him that what if you take responsibility not just for the promises that you're giving, but also those which others are giving to you if your results are impacted by they not fulfilling their promise? What could you have done differently? I asked this person this, and he said that I could have reminded him. Right? I could kind of sense that he's not going to do it or do it on time, and I didn't do anything. I was just waiting for him to maybe not deliver, and then say that, oh, you didn't do it. But he could have reminded him. He could have agreed upon a check-in with this person, and this was an eye-opening moment for them. And he said that, oh, this is so simple. If I don't make it about right and wrong, if I don't make it about fair or unfair, because these results matter to me, I simply take one small action. And it often costs less time and less energy than sulking in frustration and blame of why somebody else is not taking responsibility. Leadership is about producing results. And if your life is impacted, if your results are impacted, then you take responsibility for it. And responsibility not as blame, but as what is the next action you will take to move those results closer, right? And that might be reminding somebody, that might be holding somebody accountable, that might be having a difficult conversation about, like, you said you promised this and this doesn't happen, what is missing, what can we do to make sure that this doesn't happen again. But instead of blame, instead of frustration, or instead of grudges or complaints which we keep to ourselves or share with maybe a third party, like having the direct conversation which will actually make a difference, and not make it about who is guilty or who is to blame or whose responsibility is it, right? We can use this word responsibility to beat others down, but we can also just honor and choose responsibility as an act of freedom, as an act of leadership, rather than making it a heavy burden. And in the end, right, it is very simple. Even to you, right, who might be listening, it's very simple. If you give a promise, you deliver. But if others give you a promise, you make sure they deliver. Right? As simple as that. Even if the other person is your boss or is your CEO or whoever that is. Because if you do not, then it is just all about ego. Right? It's not about the result. It's not about your purpose, what you're trying to produce for your customers, for the people that are going to be impacted. Because in the end, if you care about the people, if you care about the reason why you are here, then it doesn't matter who gave the promise. Right? If your results are impacted, then you just talk about it. Otherwise, it is just ego and other subconscious stuff which we end up like projecting on others and then blaming others. In the end, it's as simple as that. If you're committed to the results, you do what is required. If you're committed to the results, you do what is required. You don't ask whose job was that, or you don't point fingers and say you should have done that. You simply do what is required in any given situation. And as this leader started to practice this new way of taking responsibility, their results shifted immediately. And I think more than the results, their internal state shifted. Earlier, it was a lot of burden, a lot of heaviness around who should be doing that and others are not doing so. And now it is very simple that these results matter to me, and I simply take the next step, irrespective of who is responsible. There is no like confusion or all of these thoughts running for him. He simply sees the results and acts in commitment to those results. He doesn't get caught up on in I should or you should or they should have or I should have. He simply does the next thing. And because of this, he is wasting less time. He is wasting less energy in all of those emotions of frustration, disappointment, and grudges. And if he has a complaint, he goes out and make a complaint very simply. If he wants somebody else to take responsibility, he tells them. If he can do something else like reminder, putting a system in place, he simply does that. And in the end, what he's doing is just filling in the gaps, leadership gaps in the entire organization wherever he notices. And within 6 months, he has plugged so many of those holes that now everybody is looking up to him and asking, how are you doing that? And his response is simple, right? If my results are impacted, then it is my responsibility. And anybody can take that responsibility. You can take that responsibility. Pick any area of your life where you're not happy, where you are not a 10 out of a 10, and ask what are the reasons or who are the people to blame for that not being a 10. and just instead of waiting for them to take responsibility, go out and take the next step. Go out and just do the next thing. Right? Let your ego go and act with commitment to what you say that you care about, because it matters to you. So I hope you find some value from this. Thank you.